What's up, everybody? My name is Chris Hervochon, and I am back with another episode of Accounting for Marketing, the show that brings together the disciplines of accounting and marketing. Today, I'm going to be talking with Melissa Litchfield. Melissa is the CEO and founder of Litchfield Media. Litchfield Media is a digital consulting business that helps online entrepreneurs and small businesses rocket launch their passive income and influence with Facebook ads. Melissa is originally from San Diego, California, where she met and married her husband. They currently live in Savannah, Georgia with their 2-year-old daughter. And as an aside, we certainly appreciate their service to our country. Her husband is in the Coast Guard, and we certainly appreciate all of their sacrifice. So hopefully you find this conversation with Melissa to be both informative and entertaining. And so without further ado, let's dive into it. So good morning, Melissa. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. Never better. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what your experience has been, and a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so let's see. I will back it up a little bit to 2015.
Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, so that's when my start with Facebook advertising started. I took a course, which is very popular nowadays, but back then it really wasn't, right? I feel like online courses and online education have really just exploded.
Yeah. It's like the new thing, right?
Yeah, like everyone has their own online course, which we'll get into a little bit, but that's like my ideal customer or my ideal client. So back in 2015, I learned Facebook advertising through an online course. I was dabbing into it a little bit, learning social media, how to market myself, how to help others grow their online presence, especially on Facebook and Instagram. Back then, Facebook ads was so easy to gain traction. Like all you had to do was spend like $5 a day on like a like page, like campaign for people to like your page. Super easy back then to gain traction. Whereas nowadays, gaining momentum and starting to attract the right audience and clientele is a little bit harder. You can't exactly just like boost a post and expect to have like 5 sales, in the next hour or something like that on your website. So things have quite changed. But since that time, like I was, helping another company out. So an online holistic nutrition school. I was doing their social media and I was also running their ads. So in that time frame, like Facebook ads have just changed so much that I felt like I needed a refresher. And I actually got a remote job at a really large marketing agency that specializes in working with online entrepreneurs and these digital course creators, right? So that's where like the knowledge, like the vast of like my knowledge and my skill, like really sharpened working for that marketing agency. However, on the flip side, like I was working so much. I was working over 10-hour days. I was constantly emailing clients, boxing them at night. I don't know if you're familiar with the app Boxer.
No, I am not.
Kind of like a walkie-talkie app. So you can just like quickly, talk to the other person instead of like typing out an email. It's just a lot faster to communicate.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So long story short, I learned a lot working at that really large agency, but I also was just exhausted, stressed out. I wasn't spending a lot of time with my family. So as you can imagine, like my husband is always telling me like, Melissa, you're always working. When are you going to stop working? And working remotely has its challenges. It's great. Like you have all the freedom, but when
air quotes,
yeah, when you're constantly working, just like on clients' accounts and you're getting constant like clients added to your, I guess, roster is what they would call it. One person can only do so much. So something had to give, right? I could either try to keep working with this marketing agency or I could start my own thing. So that's kind of like an epiphany that just like came to me earlier this year. I was like, it's great. I love the like whole remote thing. I love working in the digital, ad realm. I love helping clients grow and scale their business with paid advertising, because I feel like it creates this like huge opportunity, right? That they could just grow and scale their business with paid ads. Like there's a huge opportunity there for growth for your own company. So yeah, and that's kind of like a little background story about me, but like I saw the potential to have my own clients, set my own prices, set my own schedule. Hopefully that's a good explanation of
Yeah.
how it kind of came to be, and now what I do now.
So what was the process for you transitioning from full-time employee to out on your own, doing your own thing? What did that look like? How did it go? Was it basically just rip the Band-Aid off, or was it kind of a slow process?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit before that I was working with an online holistic nutrition school, and I actually was a student there like the year prior, and like I said, I was running their social media management. But when I got the actual job at the larger marketing agency, I had to quit. But I kind of reached out to them when I was about to quit the other job again, and I was like, "Hey, loved working with you guys. I would love to come back as, like your marketing director." So they kind of like hired me part-time. So that was a great like stepping stone for me, because I feel like I still had opportunities, like I wasn't tied down to something that was another 9 to 5. I could still bring on my own clients at my own pace. When you start your own company or your own business, it's really hard to like get that momentum up. And I felt like having that like one like client was like, all right, I'm in business here, right? I have some momentum with one particular client, and I can just add them on to my company as I go, like my clientele. So I can just keep building my clientele from here. A huge part of just like networking and marketing in general is just like getting out there, stepping out of your comfort zone, and joining a few local networking groups was really key to that as well. So I would say networking online and in person, and that's kind of how I gained my first like client. So I was networking in one of these like online Facebook groups, and I just offered to run this guy's ad account. He had a webinar. He's like this Google ad guru. He has his own ad agency in New York, but he wasn't very familiar, right, with the webinar side of paid traffic, right? And I was well versed in that realm, so I basically offered my services for 2 weeks for free in exchange for testimonial. So, and then from that like offering, I got my own client with him. So he was like, "Hey, how would you feel about helping me? We have this new client, we're short staffed. We'd love to have you, run this client's ad account." So yeah, that's kind of how like I got started. Just offering like free help in exchange, for obviously a testimonials. Like they just go so far, in the online world, especially if you're trying to market yourself to this new audience that doesn't really know you or your expertise, but having someone kind of like back you up, so to say, like, "Hey, she's an expert. I've worked with her before, and you can trust her."
Right. So it's super interesting to me that you said there was, and because you're a digital marketer, but you said networking online and in person.
Yes. Yeah. So I also joined like a local networking group here in Savannah, because I knew I can't just rely on online networking, right? So that's how I've also like gained some clients as well. So locally here, I have one of my clients owns a restaurant, a barbecue restaurant. I've had a client just as a referral from being in one of these networking groups. This particular client of mine, she has a fishing charter in Destin, Florida, and I was running her ads during her busy season, which is the summer for a fishing charter down in the Gulf Coast. And we just grew her presence exponentially. And she was seeing so much website traffic from the Facebook ads that we brought that she was being booked out. She went from basically no new customers from the beginning of the summer to being fully booked out just from paid advertising, like a simple campaign, like a traffic campaign on Facebook. So yeah. And one of her posts or one of the ads went viral, and that was like amazing. That really helped, like 60, almost 70 shares on one particular ad. Like I could see the notifications coming in, like people were messaging her on Facebook asking like if she had any openings. And I guess that with that sort of business, you can only take on so many new customers, right? You only have one boat. So,
There's got to be like a lame joke in there about needing a bigger boat. I feel like, yeah.
2 boats.
Yeah, you're going to need another boat.
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
cow.
So, yeah, she saw huge growth from there. And it, that kind of like has a snowball effect too. So she was like talking to me about, or with other people, like recommending me. So like she gave me another referral for a real estate or a realtor that's local to her. So, I mean, when you do good work, people see that and they're willing to just talk, great things about you, obviously.
Yep. So who do you typically work with? Do you have some sort of a niche? I know on your website it says mompreneurs, which I definitely want to hear more about. But do you have some sort of a niche that you work with generally?
Yeah. So definitely the online digital course creators that I kind of mentioned before. That's like my specialty. I like to say that's like my bread and butter. That's what I've just enhanced and grew my skill over. And then the last year, I've just grown it so much that like it's easy for me, right? But I will say that like it's so much more than just paid traffic, right? As a digital marketer, you kind of have to look at their sales funnel. And I'm going to throw some marketing jargon at you, so you can tell me if
let's do it. Let's do it.
This doesn't make sense. But like I have to look at people's businesses holistically. I can't just say like, yeah, we're going to run this ad to your website and you're going to see X, Y, and Z happen. At the end of the day, like we really have to make sure, one, their product is proven and they have a proven funnel. So that means when you're sending paid traffic to a marketing funnel, you have to make sure that like it works. So I always like to say, make sure your funnel works organically and you're making sales organically already, because paid traffic is not going to paid traffic is not going to fix what's broken, right? So like if you're not making any sales, if there's something like off with your product or your website, sending paid traffic to that product or website is not going to just magically bring you sales, right? Paid traffic is a great way to enhance what's already working. So I feel like that's something that I'm always telling like potential clients. And like, unfortunately, I do turn away business. Like if you don't have a proven product or a proven funnel yet, it doesn't make sense for us to work together. But that's like my niche, is the digital course creator, someone who has just established themselves already, that know, like, and trust factor on social media. They're ready to scale and grow their business with paid traffic. Like that is the ideal client for me, because I know that it's going to work, with an appropriate marketing strategy and an awesome funnel that converts no problem organically is just going to go crazy with paid traffic. So
That's really interesting that you said that you'd actually turn down work, just given, how, you're fairly new to being out on your own, right? And so I think what's common among new business owners is they'll take anything. And that's how you get into trouble, right? So that's super interesting that you said that.
I pretty much saw that happen at my last job working at a marketing agency. Like, okay, you have your people that can afford your agency fee, and that's great and all, but like if their product sucks or their offer sucks, no one wants it, it's gonna be really hard to make that work. And it's gonna be really hard to get an ROI for that client. And then they're gonna be unhappy. So in my eyes, I rather just turn them away and say like, hey, you have some things you need to work on, but like I'd be happy to work with you after you get those things fixed.
That's awesome. So what have you learned from marketing yourself, and how are you applying that to your clients, right? Because when you go out into business on your own, you need to get clients in the door. Like you said, if you have no revenue, you don't really have a business yet. So I'm just kind of curious as to what perspective you gain from having to actually, implement your strategies for yourself, and how that has helped you with the clients that you have.
Yeah, so I actually I just hired a business coach, a mentor.
Holy cow, that's cool.
Yeah, and like a huge investment, right? And I see this something that is only going to help and grow my business. Because I can't do this alone, right? I'm only one person. I'm not saying that like I'm an expert in all the things, because I know I'm not. And I think that's important to know, like, where you need help to actually grow your business or grow your agency, whatever you're looking to do. But since hiring that mentor, and like we were kind of just started. So, but I realized that like you have to get uncomfortable sometimes with like growth, and just marketing yourself in general on social media it's challenging. And sometimes it's hard to like find that balance, right? It's like, do I talk more about my personal life? Do I talk more about my business? Do I talk too much about marketing jargon, or like, should I not? So like, it's hard to find that balance of like, I need to like attract a certain clientele, like that entrepreneur that is struggling, or the solopreneur that's struggling to get their business off the ground. Like, I can totally relate to that. So that's what I'm trying to also put on social media. Like, I'm trying to show my personal side, like, hey, yes, I'm a mom. And that term you mentioned before that's on my website, a mompreneur, which essentially is a mom that's an entrepreneur. Moms like me running their own business from home, like making a decent amount of money that is like obviously helping fund just things in general for their families. So funding vacations, helping pay for the bills, like that's a mompreneur to me, like running her own empire online and also like making babies essentially.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Running an empire online and making babies. That's definitely next level.
Yeah. The juggle of everything, like being a wife, being a mom, being a business owner. There's so many hats that you wear as a mom. It's always like hard to balance it all. I think like that's the one thing that a lot of moms struggle with, is like the balance. Like I want to have a social life, but I also like want to run a business and I'm trying to grow it. So sometimes I don't have a social life. And I'm also a mom. So yeah, it's a hard balance. Yeah,
that's awesome. A lot of respect to those moms out there who do it and do it successfully, for sure. I mean, that's it's certainly harder harder than what the dads go through, for guaranteed. Speaking as a dad myself. So what else have you learned from going out on your own? I'm kind of curious. What have we not touched on yet?
Let's see. We touched on turning away business. I feel like that's a good topic for new business owners to really grasp. Let's see. Delegating.
So let's talk about delegating, because I know that you've got a remote team, right? So, and this is, I'm seeing more and more of this is agency owners, especially digital, and folks who are in SEO, hiring remote teams and kind of going through that whole process of how do you find a remote team, and how do you know who's good and who's not. And I think that gets into data security and stuff like that too. So how has that been? How do you manage it? And how do you grow a remote team like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So
Thank you.
I do have a virtual assistant, and I've actually worked with her before, past and prior. So I felt comfortable hiring her on again, almost basically proposing to her like, hey, I have this new business and I'd love for you to help me grow it. So she is like a huge part of like just helping me manage like my own social media account for Litchfield Media. And I'm also basically going to have her manage my personal account too. That's something that my business coach wants me to grow as well. Like, I have so many followers on my personal profile right now on Instagram that she thinks we can really leverage that, to find clients and for me to connect with other people. But anyway, back to went on a tangent there. So I also would say like networking online again. Like, I found so many like awesome referrals just from connecting with people, like being in different Facebook groups. There's a couple different ones I'm in, but like there's one for creative entrepreneurs, people that are like virtual assistants or graphic designers. There's a lot of different folks that run their business in there. And if I ever have a question or like, I feel like there's always like, I'm swamped with like referrals if I ask something like that in one of those groups. But also the last job that I had at the marketing agency, you'd be really surprised, but like I have so many connections with like former employees that used to work there. They either like build funnels, you know, not all of them were doing Facebook ad management, but like I've met copywriters, I've met funnel builders, you know, basically like the people that handle the tech side of like the funnels, like marketing funnels and or just ads in general. But yeah, I feel like that's one side of the spectrum where I found awesome contractors, and then also networking online in like Facebook groups. But yeah, typically the ones that are very helpful when you have a question, you can kind of tell like, okay, who's like, you can already tell like who's an expert in like, say, ClickFunnels, for example, is like just a platform that's really popular with online entrepreneurs right now. So yeah, if like you have a particular question about ClickFunnels or a certain software, I feel like you can find some like really awesome referral partners in those groups. They have so much experience in the platform and they do good work. You can kind of tell when like, they answer your question, they know it.
Right. So basically just leveraging your network both online and what you've built just from prior experience.
Yes, definitely, for sure. Don't be afraid to delegate or outsource because honestly, like your time is so precious. And I could probably spend hours like figuring out a new platform, whereas someone who's experienced and has like knowledge and expertise literally will take them like 30 minutes and it'll just save me so much time.
Yeah.
So I see it like as a really key source to just, I know like as a new business owner, it's hard to like spend that money on someone's expertise and knowledge that you know you could eventually do yourself, but it just takes up so much of your time. Like I want to be focusing on other stuff that will actually build a business versus like uploading my email list into you know a software or like figuring out how to build like a landing page on this new software that I just am kind of transferring everything over. Like just stuff like that is like so crucial to my time. I don't want to waste it on.
Yeah, I think I think it's a really, really common issue that, I mean, I see it across all businesses, definitely in the marketing space as well. It's a problem in the accounting space, but you know, at some point you've got to ask yourself, is this the highest and best use of my time, or should I just get somebody else to do it who's better at it and faster?
Right. Yeah. And like something that would probably take me to learn because a lot of stuff is a learning curve, you know, even though I'm very familiar with like building an email sequence, doing the automation, like something that probably would have taken me hours. It took someone else like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
So, switching gears just a little bit, but you are a prolific writer on LinkedIn. I see LinkedIn articles all the time, and I'm pretty sure I've read every last one of them because they're just that good. But I'm really, really curious, how are you finding the LinkedIn platform, especially for articles? And how did you get started? What made you choose LinkedIn as kind of your platform for disseminating that information?
Actually, you know, I've turned my blog posts into the LinkedIn articles, and I stumbled across like a podcast one day, and they were like, "You really need to be on LinkedIn," and I was like, "Dang it, I on LinkedIn more. I'm just not." You know, so I mean, that's something else I delegated to my VA. I was like, take all of these blog posts I've written since April, since I started my business. I was so consistent in writing one, like having a new one each week for my blog. And I know not a lot of people are seeing that. So I feel like just having that content elsewhere on other, you know, platforms, like whether it be Pinterest or LinkedIn, is just another way of showing authority and like expertise in your field. So, and that's where like the business owners and the decision makers are, right? They're on LinkedIn. So if someone comes across my article or reads something on LinkedIn that I wrote, I just feel like that will just help, you know, the expertise and like showing me as like an expert in the field, so to say. So I can't say if it's actually brought me clients yet, but I know like building up that credibility is so key for a new business.
Have you found that you're getting decent engagement on LinkedIn with the articles?
I can see that I have more people viewing it than like my blog posts, if that makes sense.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I know my followers on Instagram for like Litchfield Media, the business profile that I have. People read the blog post, but they don't comment. They're more so like telling me in the DMs, so like your direct messages. They're like, "Oh, that blog post was so helpful," but like it's so hard to like get people to comment on your actual post. I guess they feel that connection more on Instagram, and it's more they feel comfortable reaching out to me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So this is an accounting show. I am an accountant, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about accounting. So I'm curious because a lot of creatives and marketers, accounting is just not their thing, right? They get into business because they want to, help drive revenue for other businesses, and they probably didn't take 4 years of accounting classes, right? So what does your accounting process look like? What are some of the softwares that you're using? Just what does that look like, and how has that learning process been for you and starting your own thing?
Well, because you are my accountant.
I didn't want to say anything, but yeah.
Yes. So I was using Wave in the beginning, but I knew like as I've been growing, so much over the past 3 or 4 months that like I needed like someone to streamline the process for me. So obviously that's why I hired you. Delegating, right? But yeah, so like the invoicing, just making sure all the expenses are like accounted for, like that's something that I have no problem doing, even though it's not my favorite. Going from Wave to QuickBooks was definitely like, you got to learn it. It's learning where everything is on the dashboard. But yeah, I mean, QuickBooks is just so, it's what people use, right? It's what accountants use.
Yeah, there's millions of users.
Yeah, it was a recommendation from you, and I have no problem paying for a software, like I said, for like it's an investment in my business. That's what I see it as. So if I can have someone that is in my corner on that side, like helping me itemize stuff at the end of the year, it's something like one less thing that I have to do as a business owner. One less headache.
Yeah, for sure. So for people who don't know, Wave is an accounting software.
It's
generally
up to a certain point. Yeah.
Right. Generally really good for invoicing and collecting payments and stuff like that. The problem that we ran into with yours is that you're an S Corp. And so you need to take reasonable compensation. And the way to do that is just easier if you're on payroll. And we had some payroll issues with trying to sync up Wave, basically, is what, it's a large part of what drove that decision, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever makes it easier at the end of the day is like.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when it comes to payroll.
Yeah, and if there's, I mean, hopefully maybe one day if QuickBooks can like integrate in their software where you can like just write up contracts and send that. Is that in the works somehow?
We might be able to talk about that actually, which actually brings me kind of to my next question. But what is your invoicing and pricing process? Because I know a lot of other marketers struggle with that. Do we invoice, especially people who run digital media, right? So, do we invoice in the beginning of the month for, the ad spend that we're going to do throughout the month? Do we run the ad spend and then invoice for it at the end of the month, which creates kind of a cash flow issue? How do we price it? What does our margin look like? I see you nodding your head, so I'm curious as to what your thoughts are.
I really don't know why some people pay for ad spend. I think that's something that the client should pay for. Obviously, it's their business, right? They need
Interesting.
That should be coming out of their pocket. I mean, I'm curious to know what you think, but that's just kind of my experience and how it was done prior, working at a larger marketing agency. So some do it so differently, right? So I will be eventually moving over to a retainer process. So essentially bringing in a client and having them on like a 3-month contract. So like a retainer plan. It just creates like a consistent revenue stream for your business. So if you're contemplating that, because like starting out, yes, I'm just invoicing people like 1 month at a time. I obviously do expect payment upfront before I start working. That's just makes me feel better about the process, But I am upfront with people too, you know, like marketing isn't a guarantee. So I have like that disclaimer in my contract that I have every client sign. There's no way to guarantee sales, right? We have estimates from numbers and like KPIs that we've seen or that we can see in the history of your ad account, and we can make really good estimates based on that data. But we can never guarantee in marketing that you will see X amount of sales, right? There's like a projection, and there's estimates that we use to like base our decisions off of. So we can make strategic decisions instead of like, I'm not the marketer that's going to say, you're going to see X amount of sales if you work with us, because that's just not realistic, right? So I try to keep it real with people.
I'm getting that.
Yeah, just have like a good sense of like understanding of how paid traffic works. And, you know, sometimes it's also like just testing, right? Sometimes it's just, you need that data to test. And that's obviously, it's an investment in your business, right? You're investing in this like data that you're buying, so you know what to do next time.
How about pricing? Are you a value pricing person, or by the hour, or based on ad spend, or how does that work for you?
Yeah, we haven't switched over, because I know some agencies charge like a certain percentage of ad spend on top of like a management fee. But we just do like a set management fee. It really depends on the client and how much like time and effort they're needing, or how many campaigns they have lined up. But typically it's like a package like deal. You know, if you're
Fixed fee.
yeah, if you're wanting like a monthly management for your account, it's going to be like a set fee or price.
Interesting.
If you want extra help, like, do you need like specialized copy, right? So do I need to bring in a copywriter for your email sequence? Well, that's going to be extra.
Right. I'm curious, like, how do you determine, you know, that fixed fee? Is it based on the input costs? Is it based on something else? Is it based on, you know, how easy or difficult the client is to work with? You know, without giving specific numbers or anything like that, you know, what are the inputs that go into that pricing?
Well, yeah, it definitely depends on like their budget, right? So you're not
Yeah.
going to charge someone $4,000 to run their monthly ads if their ad spend budget is like $3,000. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
That's someone in particular that like, or a situation that I would say, you know, just doesn't make, it's not the best fit for us to be working together. So basically I have potential clients come on a discovery call with me. It's 30 minutes. It's completely free, but I also have them fill out an intake form. So I want to know certain things in their business. I want to look at their website, their funnel links. So, because from there I can kind of see like, okay, what am I working with here? I want to know how much revenue they've brought in with their business so far. And that could be like a compiled amount of like over the years what they've made. And then I want to know their budget, you know, like how much are they willing to spend on ads? So like their ad spend budget, and also their marketing budget. So if they're telling me that they're only willing to invest $500, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like paid traffic is, you know, you're getting into the big leagues here. And if you're only looking to spend like $500 a month, maybe like Google Ads is just better for you. So it just really depends on the client and their business. But typically I can see, you know, from their questions that they fill out from the intake form, I can see like what I'm working with. So
Interesting. And so you'll also, from that information, you'll also determine what platform is best for them.
yes. We do Google Ads, not a whole lot, but again, like my specialty is Facebook and Instagram, since they own each other.
Same thing, right?
Same thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that was probably super helpful for everybody who's going to be watching this. How about as far as internal operations, KPIs? I know we were talking via email before recording this, and you'd alluded to, well, you know, making a client happy, right? But that's every service-based business. So what's kind of like the next level? Like what needs to happen, or what do you need to track in your business for you to be happy about the performance of your business, apart from, you know, is the client happy?
Right. So I was thinking about this, and obviously client like retainment is, or just having that client on for more than a month is like a huge KPI that like I want to increase for my own business. And I know not everyone has that sort of business where they're looking to invest on a consistent like month-to-month basis on paid traffic. So that's the type of clientele that like I'm looking to just beef up my roster with, you know, is the entrepreneur that's ready and willing to invest like on a consistent basis to like invest in the data, invest in their business, and then basically it's just going to help them on the long, you know, in the long run, build up that passive income, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the clients that I work with right now, they're digital course creators or they're online entrepreneurs. They have some sort of like product or service that they offer online. And a lot of that stuff could be just passive, like turned into something that's automated. So for my clients, the benefit to that is it's money in their pocket, right? The ads are generating the passive income for them. So that's eventually the end goal is to increase the type of clients that have, you know, that just like that passive income that they want coming in consistently every month. And they're going to be willing to invest in ad spend and like an expert to run their ads.
Right. So basically just making sure that people kind of stay in your bubble and how long they're going to stay in your bubble and the lifetime value of that client.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So more broadly, kind of the industry as a whole, and I love talking about this. This is like my absolute favorite topic, but hard trends and soft trends. So hard trends are future facts, things that are definitely going to happen that we have no influence over. The example I always give is an aging population. You know, we've got baby boomers. That's our largest segment of the population. They're getting older. Data, everything's generating data now. My refrigerator is generating data. It's just more prolific, you know, stuff like that. And then soft trends are things like may or may not happen, that we may or may not be able to influence. But one of the things you just said about automation leads me to ask specifically about the hard trends. Like, where do you see automation and AI going? And is that something that you're thinking about? Is that something that's currently impacting your business? Is that something that clients are asking about? You know, kind of where are you on that?
So yeah, that's a really good question. I am, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more, but I'm working on a passive income product for my own business. Essentially, it's an online membership where small business owners, online entrepreneurs can DIY their ads in confidence. So we have like an online training portal. They can watch the training at a self pace, come and go as they please into the training, but also they have almost like it's a group experience. So like a group training experience instead of that one-on-one, which takes up more of my time, right? As a business owner, you can only have so much of your time that you can dedicate to each client. But as a student in this online membership, it's a great way for like someone who doesn't have a huge ad spend budget or someone who can't afford a one-on-one person to manage their ads. And this is a great way to build up my own income, my own revenue that's coming into my business. It's something that's going to be a little more passive that I don't have to spend so much time on, because with a one-on-one client, it obviously is going to take a lot more time to manage their ads, come up with strategy, look over their funnel, make sure everything's in working order. So yeah, that's a little bit about my passive income project. And I'm actually relaunching it at the end of the month. So it just revamping it, making sure we have X amount of students still, in the membership, they're actually getting results, right? That's a huge part of having this passive income for any client, and not just me. You have to make sure that people are getting results. If they're not getting results, then they're not going to stay or they're not going to buy.
Totally fair.
Yeah, so testimonials are huge, social proof. And just kind of getting back to the trends that you were talking about, a lot of people are always scared about the algorithms changing, and honestly, it's just something that we don't have control over. So the Facebook algorithm or the Instagram algorithm, Facebook and Instagram is seriously here to stay. There's billions of users using Instagram and Facebook every day, actively. That's just where the population is these days, right? And that's where a large part of our consumers are. They're on social media. They are buying on social media, whether people want to admit it or not.
Yep.
Paid ads do work.
Yeah.
And that's why Amazon is so huge.
I found myself scrolling through Facebook last night and I came across a conference, like an advertisement for a conference. And, before you know it, I'm on like the sign up page. I don't even know where the conference is, but I'm looking through the content. I'm like, oh, this looks good. I don't even know where the conference is. And then you get to like the buy now and it's like, I don't even know what I'm signing up for. And it's like, oh, damn, it was an ad, and like they really wrote me in. But I think kind of what I heard you say there is and this is something that's common in a lot of industries, is that it's becoming a little bit easier with automation and the different tools that we have to potentially DIY it. Or, maybe certain professionals just aren't going to get the value out of, depending on your pricing model, not going to get the value out of the service that you provide just because there is more automation. So thinking in terms of somebody who bills by the hour, right? More automation means that you're spending less time per client. So theoretically, you can't bill them as much. But what I kind of heard you say there is you're kind of elevating yourself above that to the point where you're providing more of a consulting value add to folks that's scalable and that they can figure out how to run their own traffic. And that's just one way to get around that automation and that AI that's coming. So I'm curious whether or not that's what you're thinking, or whether I'm just way off base.
Oh, well, yeah. So the main goal is to help. Honestly, like I've been in their shoes before, right? Like I'm a new business owner and I honestly can't afford, if I was in their shoes, like I probably wouldn't be able to afford like just this expert high level service, right? When it comes to Facebook ad management, but it's so essential and key for digital course creators. Like if they want to get their stuff out there to people that just don't know them yet. Because not everyone has like that built-in audience already, right? That they've established years on social media. So just being able to know how to run your own ads like effectively so you're not wasting money, I think is so key, because I see it all the time. Unfortunately, I see it all the time where people are trying to DIY their ads and they're wasting money or they think it doesn't work, right? That's a common concern that I hear with like small business owners. They're like, yeah, I've done ads before, but like I haven't seen like a return on my investment before. Because, well, were you boosting posts, or were you only, running like a traffic, like a campaign? That's basically one of the objectives you can do in Facebook ads. Because sometimes you have to optimize for conversion instead, So just, I think it's a common concern with small business owners. I kind of wanted to like break that mold that paid traffic is really effective if you know how to do it right.
Right. What are you finding that's working now in Facebook and Instagram? So I hear a lot about, campaign budget optimization and, you need to be sending everybody into a group. You need to have your own community, and, you need to have influencers and yada, yada, yada. And you listen to Gary Vee and he's like, oh, it's all about influencers. You got to have influencers. They're just so cheap and they're so effective. So like, what are you finding now that's working and what's interesting?
And it kind of honestly depends, right? Like what type of business or product that you have. If you have like say like some type of food or beverage product, I could definitely say like, yes, go for influencers. Because they have more influence than you think, right? But say you're building a brand, you're building some type of like online business with the type of clientele that I typically work with, Instagram stories, like that's where it's at. Like,
Instagram stories.
Yeah, you need to be on video and doing Instagram stories all the time.
What's your definition of all the time?
Just like keeping so that little Instagram profile circle, like if it's highlighted, there needs to be like a new story there. Anytime I look at your profile, like if there's nothing to watch, then they're gonna skip on over to the next person, right? So it's like a constant state of mind, right? Like you're always on top of their mind when you're constantly in the stories or in their feed or whatever. But I feel like stories is where it's at, and talking, like going back to the ad side, I've seen a lot of my clients just like kill it on Instagram ads, Instagram story ads. It's cheaper. And especially you can make videos out of, basically you could put 3 30-second videos together, almost like a slideshow, and you can just essentially split a video up into like 3 different slides and then have that run as an ad. I've seen it convert really awesome, like just for my clients. So
interesting. So Instagram's where it's at.
Yeah.
So Instagram organic or Instagram paid or Facebook paid? If you had to pick one.
Either or.
Got to pick one.
I would say Instagram. Like organically, you can grow following if you are going live. Using all the features of Instagram, you can really build a solid business just on Instagram.
Interesting. Fair enough.
I do. Yeah, I've always loved Instagram. Always. Even though I know like you can definitely build and grow an audience on Facebook. But same thing, like you got to be using the features, right? Like Facebook is, if you think about it, Facebook Lives pretty much in competition with YouTube. So that's why Facebook favors, going live and videos and all that, because YouTube is like one of their biggest competitors. So the longer you are staying on the platform, like that's what Facebook and Instagram want. They want people to just watch your video.
Right. So what kind of
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, what kind of content would you put on like on an Instagram story versus what would you put on a YouTube or a Facebook Live?
I think say you have like a brick and mortar business, people love behind the scenes. So behind the scenes are like great to showcase on Instagram stories, because you can take, your typical average client behind the scenes of like how a product is made, or, maybe it's a restaurant and they're doing some food prep in the morning, like just like put your phone up on a tripod and just like do a time lapse or something. Like, I think that would be really eye catching for an Instagram story, just like a time lapse video essentially is like sped up, and you can see like what's going on behind the scenes, how they prep their food, or how a certain product is made. Maybe like you make your own, I know I'm just making things up, but maybe you make your own like body butter or something. I love that, like just a little behind the scenes, like exclusivity. Is that the right word?
That's the right word.
Like they're having like exclusive access to you 24/7. So
that's cool. So we've covered a lot of ground. This has been super fun, super interesting for me, for sure.
Topics.
Yeah, we covered a wide range. But if people want to find you, if they want to sign up for your course, if they want to learn more about your course, where do they go? What do they do? What does your process look like for getting started with new clients, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So you can basically follow me on Instagram, Litchfield Media. And my website is litchfieldmedia.org. The enrollment opens for a conversion class, which is the online membership to DIY your own ads. It opens at the end of the month, so September 24th. The page is not live yet, so just send me a DM or email me. I think that's like to basically get on the wait list is the best way to just like contact me, so I can make sure that you're getting all the emails and updates. Or you can just I have a free checklist. So it's called Before You Run Ads. It's a free checklist you can download, and you can just opt into that on the website. So litchfieldmedia.org. You can get that in your inbox, and all the tips, all the ad tips will be sent to your email.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. So, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.